All right, it's time for today's prediction video. But before we get started, give me my theme music. Oh yeah, good morning. That is Uncle Lou here. That's right, it is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Also, in addition to that as well, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. The season for me is just getting started. This is the time of year, every single year, where I start going through these teams, team by team, game by game, breaking down all the games and giving you a winner and a loser for every single one. We've done 3 teams so far: Nebraska, Texas A&M, and Miami. So if you're interested in any of those 3, you can click back a video or 2 and find those. Make sure you're hitting the thumbs up. And like I said, please make sure you're subscribed. The season's right around the corner. Up today to Colorado Buffaloes. Big shout out to Andrew, Ben S., and Chris over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. All 3 of those scholarly individuals suggested that I do a Colorado season preview and game-by-game prediction. So for you 3 and for anybody else who may be interested, here you go. I really appreciate you 3 helping to support the show and the channel over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. If you're a member on the Patreon page, make sure you go over there. The post on the top of the page is about the prediction videos. Leave a comment letting me know what team it is you want to see me do a prediction video for. Every day when I sit down to do these prediction videos, that's where I go. The Patreon page, I scroll through the list and I pick a team. So make sure you head over there, leave a comment, and let me know what team you want me to do. The link to the Patreon page is in the description of this video. Feel free to check it out. All right, Colorado, of course, last year, first year head coach Deion Sanders, and to say things didn't go well would be an understatement. 4-8, 1-8 in the Pac-12, dead last in the Pac-12. Started off hot, got an unexpected win in week 1 against TCU, picked up a couple more wins early in the season. After that, though, it was just all downhill. They lost, I believe, 7 of their last 8 games. Injuries, no depth, lack of depth. Depth that really is not up to par. Just tons of issues with Colorado. We'll talk about some of those leading up to the today's prediction video, but not a good season by any measure. 4-8, 1-8 in the Pac-12, which was good for dead last. First loss of the season was to Oregon. I think we all remember that game. The hype train was completely out of control surrounding Colorado, living in a land of fantasy. And I think we were all Oregon fans that day when we saw them smack Deion in Colorado around 42-6. After that, they lost to Southern Cal, which ended up being a 5-loss team. They then lost to Stanford, a team that went 3-9. They then lost to UCLA, a 5-loss team. Oregon State, a 5-loss team. They lost to Washington State, who went 5-7. They lost to Utah, a 5-loss team. Probably their best loss of the season was to Arizona. Arizona finished the season, I believe, 10-3. Colorado lost to them by 3 points, 34-31. So there you go, 4-8, 1-8 in the Pac-12. Losses to Oregon, Southern Cal, Stanford, UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, Washington State, and Utah. We all know the story. We all know what's going on at Colorado. Pretty much turned the roster completely over. Year 1 there. Sent a lot of players packing to the portal. Brought in a ton of players. More on that in a second. Not really interested in high school recruiting at Colorado. Something else we'll talk about in a second. They are filling their roster with transfers. It didn't work last year. I'm of the opinion it's never going to work. We'll see. Get to the schedule in a minute. But anyway, talent-wise, where does Colorado rank within the world of college football? The 2024 team composite talent indexes are not out yet, so all we have to go on is last year's. Last year's, they were the 35th most talented team in the country. Now, keep in mind, this just looks at a roster from top to bottom and ranks the teams based on total talent, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be the 35th best team in the country just because you have the 35th most talented roster. And I'll give you an example, and this actually kind of applies to Colorado. Colorado had some serious talent at the quarterback position, the running back position, the wide receiver position, and the defensive back position. Some serious talent. Some talent that could have started anywhere in the country. They had absolutely no talent at all. Not bad talent, not inferior. They absolutely no talent on the offensive line, the defensive line, and the linebacker. Zero. None. So the fact that they had the 35th most talented team in the country is not an indication that they should have been the 35th best team. And clearly we saw that they weren't the 35th best team. But that's just what the talent index is. It's just worth looking at. It's just one of the things you can look at to try to judge a team, but it's not the end all be all. Recruiting. Colorado doesn't recruit, or specifically Deion Sanders doesn't recruit. He's never done an in-home visit to a high school recruit, not one time. They sign a handful of high school players a year, and then they go out and get 40 or 50 transfers. No, I'm not exaggerating. You take a look at Deion's high school recruiting in his first 2 years at Colorado. 30th his first year, 2 cycles ago. The cycle that just ended in February of this year, they were 81st in the country high school recruiting class. That puts them just behind UTEP and South Alabama in terms of high school recruiting. Now, they make some of that up through the portal, right? So last year they had the 38th ranked, last year they had the first ranked portal class. This year they had the 8th ranked portal class. But here's something to keep in mind when it comes to looking at portal class rankings, okay? You are ranked based on the total value of the players that you bring in, all right? So you look at this cycle right here where Colorado was 8th in the portal rankings. They brought in 42 players. 42, okay? And they're 8th. All of the teams ahead of them brought in 5 players, 8 players, 12 players, 15 players, something like, and they're still ranked ahead of Colorado. Why? Those teams are bringing in better players than Colorado. Colorado is 26th in terms of average player rating in the portal. So it's not like they're bringing in all 5 stars in the portal. They're not. They're bringing in a lot of players who weren't good enough to play somewhere else. And now they're coming to Colorado. Again, I'm not saying that to put Colorado down. Those players might be an improvement over what Colorado had before. But you have to look at these numbers in perspective, okay? The year before, they had the number 1 ranked portal class, but they brought in 52 players. So let's say, and players are graded basically, 0 to 100 or whatever it is, right? So if you bring in 52 players and they're all rated a 50, that's not very good. But if you bring in 100 of them, that gives you 500 points, if you get what I'm saying there, right? Whereas if you got, let's say, Alabama brings in 5 players ranked 90, that's 450 points for 5 players, whereas Colorado got 500 points for 50 players. So the caliber of player you're bringing in is at least as important as the number of players you're bringing in. But anyway, this is the philosophy that Deion has adapted. Some people are buying into it. Some people like myself are not. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think you can turn your roster completely over every single year and expect to field a competitive football team. I just don't believe that. Specific position groups like the offensive line need to learn how to play together. They need to gel. They need to go through off seasons together. You don't get that when you're turning your entire roster over every single year. And in the last 2 years, when you've brought in 94 transfers, in his first 2 years at Colorado, Deion has brought in 94 transfers. That is a hard way to get cohesion with your football team when you're turning the entire roster over every single year. The other downside to bringing in this number of transfers as opposed to high school recruits is years of eligibility remaining. Some of these transfers that Colorado have brought in are seniors or redshirt seniors that only have 1 year left. They're going to be at Colorado for 1 year, then they're gone. Some have 2 years, some have 3 years, whatever the case. Every high schooler you bring in has 5 years to develop in your program, to learn your system, your philosophies, your playbook, to gel with his teammates. When you're bringing in an average of 45 players a year through the transfer portal, you don't have any of that. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's ever going to work. And I think that will be proven this year. And I'm on record saying I think this will be Deion's last year as head coach of Colorado, not because he gets fired, but I think he's going to quit. That's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Returning production, 15th in the country in terms of returning production. They're 41st offensively and 13th defensively. So they bring back a lot of that defense that was terrible. Now they're good in the back end. You got Deion Sanders' kid. You got Travis Hunter, if he can stay healthy. More on that when we get to the schedule portion of the video. They did lose Cormani McClain. Now, we don't really know how big of a loss that was because he didn't play that much last year, and there's lots of rumors about maybe his work ethic might not have been where it needed to be, whatever. We'll see how that plays out for Cormani McClain in the future now that he's landed at Florida, I believe. So we'll see how that goes. But that's Colorado's returning production from last year. Vegas numbers. Now, these aren't the end all be all. Again, no individual thing you look at is a determining factor, right? You have to sort of put all this information into a bowl, into a pot, stir it up, look at the schedule, and then try to figure out what all that information means and apply it to that schedule. So I'm not here to tell you that these Vegas odds are the end all be all and that this is how it's going to play out. This is just one piece of information worth looking at, in my opinion, when you're getting ready to try to predict the team's schedule. So what are the people that are actually willing to bet their money on Colorado? Think about Colorado in 2024. Well, the expected win total, 5.5. So last year they won 4 games. They're expected to win a game or 2 more this year. I know you can't win 5.5 games. This is a betting number. So you would either bet that you think Colorado is going to win more than 5.5 games, which would be 6 wins or more, or you bet that Colorado is going to win 5.5 games or less, which would be 5 wins or less. That's how you get the number 5.5. Anybody dumb enough out there to think Colorado is going to win a national title? Well, Vegas would love to take your money on that. The odds are plus 25,000. If you're not a gambling degenerate like me, what that means is if you bet $100 on Colorado winning the national title in 2024 and they actually go on to win the national title, that $100 will win you $25,000. That gives Colorado similar odds to teams like Texas Tech, Wisconsin, and Florida. Boy, Sunbelt Billy don't know what the fuck he's doing. Sunbelt Billy and Dion. Jesus Christ. 2 coaches, I don't know how they got hired, but they did. What about the odds to win the Big 12 plus 3,500? That puts them right in between powerhouses West Virginia and Baylor in terms of winning the Big 12. Could they make the playoffs, Colorado? No, but if you want to waste money betting on it, plus 1,400. Just about the same odds as Nebraska, who, interestingly enough, Colorado plays this season in week 2. All right, I'm putting the schedule right there. We're going to go through it game by game, and I'm going to give you a winner and a loser for every single week, and we'll see if Colorado can improve on its monumental 4-win season from a year ago. Coach Prime, year 2, they kicked things off at home against North Dakota State, an FBS team, or an FCS team, but one of the most dominant FCS programs in recent history. They've won a ton of national titles over the last 15 years. There is zero reason that an FCS team should ever beat a Power 5 team, even one as bad as Colorado. Some of the lines are already out for these games. This is one of them. Colorado is favored over North Dakota State by 7.5 points. I don't care. North Dakota State will beat them. I know that Colorado got a huge win last year in week 1 against TCU, and the ESPN and Fox and everybody, all these other idiots on TV's head exploded, and it was the greatest thing they'd ever seen. I get it. That was against a TCU team who had lost the core of its team from the previous season, who made it to the national title game before taking the worst beating in the history of national title games. And I honestly just don't think they ever progressed past that during last year's offseason. And to me, that explains TCU's year last year more than anything else. For North Dakota State, this is the exact opposite. They don't get very many opportunities to take on Power 5 teams. And even though Colorado is a trash can, they get a ton of national attention because Dion is an attention whore, and people who seek attention usually get it. So this game is going to have a ton of attention placed on it, and for that reason, for North Dakota State, this is like a Super Bowl to them. And I think North Dakota State goes in there and beats Colorado in week 1. They start out 0-1. Not good for your boy Prime. I already did it in a Nebraska preview, so you probably already know. I think they win on the road at Nebraska. I do think Colorado will be a good team early in the year, okay? So me picking them to lose to North Dakota State is not necessarily an indication of me thinking Colorado is going to be terrible this year. North Dakota State is a legitimately good team and a dangerous team. And there is no benefit to a Power 5 team playing a team like that, because if you beat them, people are just going to go, well, they're an FCS team. You're supposed to beat them. But if you lose to them, it's a point and laugh special. And I'm not going to lie, that North Dakota State game has the opportunity to be one of the funniest outcomes of the entire football season should Colorado lose, and I predict they will. But I think Colorado will be good early in the year, and I think they go on the road and win in Lincoln at a Nebraska team that I think is going to be much better than they were last year. Colorado was going to be at its best in the first month of the season when, hopefully for them, all of their players are healthy. Hopefully they don't get any injuries or any setbacks to any key players or anything like that in the weeks leading up to the start of the season. Colorado's got some good starters, right? And we know who they are. Shador Sanders at quarterback, Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball. Shiloh Sanders is a decent safety, although he really ain't all that, to be honest. Plus, he just filed bankruptcy for whatever that's worth. I don't know if that's a distraction or not. That's neither here nor there for the purposes of this video. What was I saying? Oh, I do think you go in and win at Nebraska. But look, calendar turns to October and November and the injuries start piling up. And it's not that I'm wishing injuries on Colorado. I wish we could get through a college football season where no player anywhere across the country got injured. But I live in the world of reality here, and I've been watching college football for 40 years. Every team suffers injuries every single year. It's just a part of life in the world of college football. And Colorado doesn't have the bodies, the talent, the depth to backfill that when it happens. We saw that last year. They won like 3 of their first 4, but then lost 7 of the last 8. Why? Injuries. Well, injuries is not very good. But I think early in the year, especially coming off a loss, it's a must-win game here for Colorado. I think they go on the road and get the win at Nebraska. Interestingly enough, you're an underdog. You're a 6.5-point underdog on the road at Nebraska, but I have you winning. You're favored by 7.5 against North Dakota State, but I have you losing. It's possible I'm wrong on both of those games. It's possible you beat North Dakota State and then turn around and lose to Nebraska. In any case, I've got you starting 1-1. One of the greatest games of the college football season last year, and a ton of people watched it, Colorado versus Colorado State. I don't know if it'll be anywhere near as good of a game again this year. It's on the road in Colorado State this year. Colorado is actually an 8-point favorite in that one. I think Colorado beats Colorado State, and I don't think it'll be particularly close like it was last year. That was an amazing game to watch last year on TV. You come back home. First, is this the first Big 12 game? Baylor. I think you beat Baylor. It turns out I might have been wrong about Dave Aranda. I liked Dave Aranda. I was high on the hire when Baylor picked him up. I even thought Florida maybe should have given him a call instead of calling Billy Napier. It has not gone good at Baylor for this feels like a must-win year for him at Baylor. I don't think he gets the win over Colorado, though. I think Colorado wins again. They're on a roll, 3 wins in a row, 3-1 when they head on the road to take on Central Florida. Loss. I think Goose Malzoon down there is cooking up something special for this year, and I think they're going to whip Colorado. I don't think this game will be particularly close. It's going to be 100 degrees down there. I know it's, end of September, early October, but this is the middle of Florida. This isn't even on the coast. This is swampland here. And I don't think Colorado is prepared at all. I think Central Florida might blow Colorado out. I definitely think Central Florida will win. Colorado is 3-2 heading into their first bye week. Come out of your bye week and you have to play what some people consider to be one of, if not the best teams in the Big 12 this year, Kansas State. You lose to them at home. I really like Kansas State's quarterback situation, and their coaching staff is here, and Colorado's is here. I think Kansas State gets the job done. Colorado totes its 3rd L of the season. On the road at Arizona. This was a great game last year. Probably the best loss you had last year. We talked about that earlier. A 3-point loss at home to Arizona last year. They've got a Heisman contender at quarterback just like Colorado does. Home game for Arizona is what swung this for me. If this game was at Colorado, I'd have picked Colorado to win it. I think this will be a really close game. I think this is a 50-50 game. I think this could go either way. I would not be surprised at all for Colorado to go in here and beat Arizona. It's a tough one for me to try to pick here in June, but because it's at Arizona, I'm going with them to get the win. You toed another giant L, your fourth loss of the season. Cincinnati, disappointing last year in their first year as in the Power 5 as a member of the Big 12 after making the playoffs a few years ago and getting absolutely destroyed. And I don't think it's going to get much better for them year 2, unfortunately. I think Colorado gets the win at home against Cincinnati. That takes you into your second bye week of the year. You come out for your home stretch, 4 straight games, 2 at home, 2 on the road, alternating weeks. I think you get the first one coming out of your bye week on the road at Texas Tech. I think you beat them. Another team that disappointed me last year and sort of needs to show something this year. Texas Tech and Baylor are the 2 teams in the Big 12 that I'm kind of keeping an eye on this year to see how they do, because they were massively underwhelming last year, those 2 teams, and there's no reason they should have been that bad. Both of those teams could be replacing their coach. Maybe it's a little too early for the Texas Tech guy, but they got to be better than last year. But I don't think they're good enough to beat Colorado coming out of a bye week, so you get a week to rest. So maybe if you do have some injuries here late in the year, like we talked about earlier, maybe some of those guys get healed up, rested, whatever the case, during this bye week. You come out of that and get a big win on the road at Texas Tech. After that, though, Nothing. 3 straight L's. You're not beating Utah, Kansas, or Oklahoma State. Like Kansas State, those are 3 of the best teams in the Big 12, and I think you lose to all of them. You lose at home to Utah, probably the best coach team in the Big 12 with Kyle Whittingham. Guy's been there forever. All he does is win games. At Kansas, young, up-and-coming coaching staff there, Lance Leopold, whatever his name is. I don't think he'll be there long. He's a really good coach. He's got Kansas winning 8-9 games a year. Kansas, like Colorado, needs to stay healthy to win games late in the year. They don't have the backups in the reserves that the big boys do. So this could be, the Kansas-Colorado game could be a battle of who's healthier type of thing, right? And that's obviously impossible to know in June. But again, because it's at Kansas, I'm giving them the edge there. I think they beat you. And Oklahoma State, one of the best players in the country running the ball there. Ollie Gordon, again, got to stay healthy. Mike Gundy, been doing it a long, long time, knows how to get it done. I think they beat you. You end the season with 3 straight losses, and that puts you at 5-7. But don't cry. That's a 1-game increase over last year. That means you get to spend all offseason saying, well, Deion took over a 1-win team and won 4 games his first year and then won 5 games his second year. That's improvement every single year. Woo! Yeah, you can say that if you want to. The problem is Deion won't fucking be there to hear it. Deion's not a coach. He's a teen mom with a gold whistle. That's it. And as soon as his 2 do boys are going out of there, he is too. Give me my theme music.